painting a portrait in Procreate. That's what this video is about. That's what I'll be showing you, my painting process in Procreate. Now, some of the parts of this video will be speeded up a bit, so, well, I just wanted to make the video a bit more watchable, because 2.5 hours would be a bit long, I think. Here you can see the sketching phase. I used one of my sketching brushes, and I started out with a circle for the head and the chin line. I sketched the basic shape of the upper side of the hair, and now I'm just using some angular shapes, really roughly sketching in the face. And I try to simplify the shapes and angles of a portrait. I really like to look at angles and extending lines. How steep is it steep? How steep is an angle? If you would draw a line against the hair, for example, how straight would it be, or how, what's the angle? What's the angle of this? Angles, angles, angles. I like working with angles when I'm sketching, and I'm also constantly measuring things. Like with this eyebrow, how far is that left side of that eyebrow? How far is it from the side of the face? And how big are the eyes compared to the eyebrows? Where does that corner of the eye start compared to that edge of the eyebrow? And how long is the distance between the eyebrow and the nostrils? I'm constantly comparing shapes and angles, sizes. And for example, with the mouth I'm sketching here, I look at the corners of the mouth. Where do they start? Where is the corner of the mouth compared to the pupil of the eye, for instance? Trying to shape the nose a bit here. I added this little circle, that's the top of the nose, to indicate, well, to really make more of a 3D shape of the nose, so I can more easily think about the light and where the light would hit on the nose, where the highlight would be. Because a sketch like this, that's the construction of your painting, and you can add anything in your sketch that would help you in the painting phase, like that little circle on the nose. It won't be there in the painting, but it will help me through the painting phase. It's giving a little bit of an indication of hair, of some strands. And now I'm moving from the more angular shapes to more rounded shapes. I'm refining the sketch. Refining the eyelids, that crease above the eye, and all that little roundedness beneath the eye, because you will see the eyeball through it a little bit. Refining the lips and the nostrils, making the sketch lines just a little bit more defined, a little bit thicker. Also, the distance between the eyes and the eyebrows is something to really keep a good look at, how far the eyebrow is from the eye. It's not really high. There's a small distance between them. Now we switch to this view. You will see my hand the rest of the video, so you can really see the movements I make and the amount of Oreo cookies I eat while drawing. So just speeding this up a little bit. Right now I'm refining the sketch even more, because we really want a solid base for our painting. Of course, you can always fix things later in your painting, but a solid sketch really helps. So try to get things right. Try to really look at the proportions and the sizes. Or is that the same? I don't know. But really try to get it right, that sketch, because it will really help you in the painting process. Now I'm just indicating some of the shadows, shadow areas. And now I have flipped the canvas, because when you flip the canvas, your image, you will start seeing flaws that maybe you didn't see before. Because when you're working on a painting for a long time, well, this wasn't really that long a time, but anyway, it really helps to have a fresh look at your painting or your drawing when you flip the canvas. So if you do that regularly, it will really help. It will really help to spot your mistakes. I lowered the opacity of the first sketching layer, and I have made a new sketch layer on top. And now I'm making a refined sketch on top. And I can keep the lines that I liked about my first sketch, and I can leave things out that I don't need in my sketch. And you can do this as often as you want. I mean, you can use like 10 layers before maybe you have your perfect sketch. You can start out as messy as you want to eventually come out with a neat and tidy sketch. Remember to eat while drawing. Don't forget that. You need your snacks. Indicating the hair, simplifying it. I don't need all the little lines. I just want a hint of the hair. And the sketch is almost finished. Now I'm merging the two sketch layers, and I'm making a new layer beneath the sketch, and selecting my basic flow brush to start painting in the base colors of my painting. I'm just picking an orangey reddish tone, base tone, to paint in the skin color. And you don't have to get the perfect color right away. We will be tweaking it, adding more colors, but yeah, it's a start. And since the basic flow brush, it has opacity set to pen pressure, you'll need some passes. But what I like about the brush is that you can glaze colors, so it's easy to add some color variation using this brush. You could also use a brush or a technique that blocks in the colors straight away with high opacity, but I like working like this. Here I'm adding some oranges to the hair, blocking in the shirt. Now I'm gonna add some darker color for some of the more shadow areas. I'm using a warmer, darker version of the skin tone I just used, the base color. So I like to give some warmth to my shadows. I'm sorry about the white balance shifts in the camera, by the way. I don't know what happened there, but the white balance shifts sometimes during the recording. I'm going even a little bit darker and warmer, some reddish shadows. And at this phase, you can really keep it simple. Just think about the basic shapes of the shadows. And it doesn't matter if it looks a bit extreme right now. Gonna darken up these areas a bit too. Was a bit too light. Giving it a bit more warmth. Coloring the lips. And the upper lip will be a little bit darker than the lower lip because light is coming from above. So light will hit the lower lip and not so much the upper lip. That will be in shadow a bit. I'm adding some light areas. Light will hit on the nose, on the chin, the cheeks, and the forehead. And shadow will be here, below the nose, here above the eyes, below the lower lip. And in this phase, I'm really just roughly blocking in areas of light and shadow. Just darkening the irises for now and the pupils. And I'm doing this all using my basic flow brush right now. Now I'm switching to my overlay brush because I want to unify the colors a bit. I'm adding some pinks. The overlay brush is great for adding color variation, but it also brings colors together a bit. It unifies them. Adding some dark pink tones here because the color of the hair would reflect on the face a bit because she has pink hair. Some pink will reflect on the skin. Now let's add some more highlight. And on the nose, there, that little circle that I made earlier. And the cheeks here will also have light. Will get hit by light. Here the upper lip, or above the upper lip. And on the chin. I'm going to paint the white of the eye a bit. I'm using a gray. I'm going to go even a little bit darker right now. Now I'm going to grab my standard blender to blend all the colors a little bit. Made my blender pretty big. And I'm just going to blend these edges a bit, smoothing everything out. And this is all still on the same layer, the color layer below the sketch layers. In Procreate, I always work on, well, mostly work on one layer, because you can only use the smudge tool, the blending tool, when your colors are together on a layer. Now I'm going to duplicate my layer, and that is so I can save the process really. You can't really save multiple copies of your work in Procreate unless you would duplicate your entire file, of course. So I duplicate my layer every once in a while so I can save my process. Now I've merged the sketch layers, named it sketch, and lowered the opacity a little bit. And now I can continue working on the painting. I'm gonna work on adding some more contrast, darkening some parts. Really refining some shapes now, because eventually I want to get rid of that sketch layer, so I need to work on the edges that I can see. Because if I don't do that, and if I would erase my sketch layer, everything would look really smudgy. I'm darkening this upper lip a bit, because that will be in shadow. Grabbing some cookies. Just working on some shadow areas right now. Using pretty warm colors. I'm using some cool tones for the highlights. A bit bluish tones for those lightest highlights. Smudge these a bit. And as you can see, I'm constantly working on the entire portrait. Lowering the sketch layer, the opacity a little bit. And I'm going to grab my darken line brush. Now I like using this brush to add darker lines, to refine shapes. Like here on the eye, I use it to define that upper eyelid. And there will be shadow below that upper eyelid, so I can refine that, and I can refine the shape of the iris. right here as well. I'll also use it to darken the crease above that upper eyelid. And it's important with this brush that you do have to work on the layer where the color is. You can pick a local color, and using that with the darken line brush, it will darken the area. I guess that's why I called it the darken line brush, because it is set to multiply, and yeah, you can make dark lines. So yeah, I find it really handy for stuff like this. And because it's set to multiply, I don't have to really think about what colors to pick. I can just pick a local color or a slightly darker color than the local color and use that to refine these lines. And you can make subtle darker lines by using this brush with a lighter color. Also refining the nose a little bit here. And like I said earlier, I like working on the entire portrait while painting. I sometimes see artists that just work from top to bottom on a painting, starting out with detailing, painting one eye and then the other eye, and moving down. But yeah, it's not my preferred way of painting. I like working on the entire piece all at once, moving from one eye to the other, and then to the lips, to the hair, whatever. Because yeah, I feel it's a bit more exciting to paint that way. It keeps me fresh, and it also enables me to keep an eye on the entire painting, on the entire process. If it looks right, it will really suck if I would paint one eye and make it perfect, then move to the other, and then find out that the piece as a whole looks wrong. And also, yeah, painting this way, that'll make sure that I won't get bored, I guess. I'm not very patient, and just working on one little piece of a painting, yeah, I think I wouldn't have the patience for that. I'm grabbing my multiply brush right now. That is also set to multiply, so it darkens areas. I can grab a local color, or if I want the shadows to be warm, I can use a red tone. And I have set it to a very low opacity. It's a soft brush, so I can make some subtle shadows. It really helps to darken areas. And because it's set to multiply, you won't lose any texture that you've already painted. Now, there's not much texture here yet, but if you are at a later stage of your painting, it's really handy to use a brush like the multiply brush to darken areas, because you will still be able to see the texture right through. I'm using the overlay brush again. Now blending things in. Wanted to make the skin a bit warmer, unifying the colors a bit. And now it's time to blend again. Smoothing things out. Lowering the sketch layer even more. Lowering the opacity until it's just barely visible. Grabbing the basic flow brush again to work on some highlights here on the nose and on the upper lip. And now I'm grabbing my lighten line brush. It's like the darken line, but this line brush will lighten things. So it's handy to add light details like that little edge on the underside of the nose and these highlights on the lips. I also like using it on the eyes, on highlights on the lower eyelid, for example. Also adding light detail here on the chin. Sometimes I just roughly use it, blocking in some light and then grabbing a blender to smooth it out. Like here now I'm detailing that lower lid a bit and the upper lid. So I use this brush for light details. Here you can see that I'm just roughly blocking in some light and then smudging it. Now I'm continuing to the hair. I'm grabbing the hair blocking brush, using a slightly darker color than I had already laid down for the hair. And now I'm just going to block in the base shape of the hair. This will be the base for the detailing of the hair. Like the under hair. A base of under hair. Because it already has some slight hair texture, but not that much, but it will be a nice base to paint more detailed, more textured hair on top. Making these flowing lines. Feels a bit, I always try to imagine I'm brushing the hair with my pencil. Trying to move along the flow of the hair. Grabbing some other colors as well now for the base. It'll be a bit darker here. So trying out some reds. Just experimenting with the color of the hair. Now I'm grabbing my smudgy hairbrush. This has some more texture, some more hair texture. So this is more towards detailing. Well, not really detailing, but this is what will add some texture to the hair. I'm sorry, it wasn't the smudgy hairbrush, but the lighten hairbrush I just used. Excuse me. The lighten hairbrush also has some hair texture, and you can use a base hair color and use this brush to lighten areas of the hair. So it's a bit like the lighten line brush, but then for hair. You can add lighter details or shape the hair a bit. So it was the lighten hairbrush, not the smudgy hairbrush. I'm going to blend a bit again. I duplicated my layer again to save my progress. Grabbing the multiply brush to work on some shadows. Made it really small to add this slight shadow next to the nose to define the shape of the nose a little bit more. I felt this area needed a little bit more shadow, a little bit more contrast. And with the darken line brush, I am going to work on the eyes a bit more. Darkening the iris. I felt it was a little bit too light. In the corner of the eye. Darkening the iris here as well. Making the corner of the eye. And there's that little ridge where the lower eyelashes will grow. They will start growing there later. But I've already prepared the area. I'm going to add a little bit of eyeshadow, bright pink, on the upper lid. A little bit in the corners here. Light will hit a little bit there, so I'm adding a highlight by using the basic flow brush still. Lightening the eyeball just a little bit. Adding some red, brownish color to the corner of the eye because that's always a little bit red pink. I'm darkening the white of the eye again, just tweaking the eyeballs. Working on the irises, adding some slight details. Using the light and line brush to add these details to the iris, and adding some light to this lower eyelid and the upper eyelid. And some slight lines on the skin. Grabbing a little bit of blue to paint the highlight on the eyeball right here. And it immediately brings life to those eyes. Now I'm making a new layer and grabbing the lashes brush that is part of my eye brushes set. I've grabbed a dark color, a very dark brown. And so on a new layer above the portrait, I'm painting in these lashes. Now you can really see the movements I make with my hand to draw in these lashes. Sorry about blocking the side a bit here with my hand. And as you can see, these eyelashes, they are moving, well, they clump together a little bit. These aren't all separate eyelashes, but Yeah, they group together just a little bit. Now for the lower eyelids, for the lower eyelashes, I picked a slightly lighter color, and I'm using less pressure when drawing these because the lower eyelashes are lighter than the upper eyelashes. And these also, they group together a little bit. And I decided to use the lashes brush as well for the eyebrows, because the lashes brush is great for drawing short hairs. So still using the lashes brush here to add this this hair texture to the eyebrows. Onto the other eyebrow. And instead of working from the inside to the outside, I decided to work from the outside to the inside a little bit more with this eyebrow. Adding some lighter hairs as well there. I really wanted to get this end right here. That shape. Okay, moving back to the face again. And I am grabbing my grain darken brush. It's a grainy brush set to multiply, and I'm using it to add shadow to the skin, but at the same time adding a grainy texture. So giving some skin texture to the skin. So I'm working here on the underside of the eyes of that eyelid, giving it a little bit more shape. And since the lashes are on a separate layer, I can just paint below them. I'm not touching the lashes. And this grain brush, it's really subtle. So it's for the subtle shadows and to add a subtle grain texture. Now I'm using my blender to blend everything a little bit. It's actually my my skin blender, I think. Now I'm grabbing the grain brush again, but this time the lighten version. And using this brush, I can lighten areas of the skin and at the same time add a slight grainy texture. So this darken and lighten treatment will give some more texture to the skin, make the skin look more realistic. Now I'm using my skin brush. That's a brush set to normal, just a normal brush, but with a skin texture. So I prefer not to use my basic flow brush here anymore because I've already laid down a texture on the skin and I don't want to ruin that. I don't want to soften that, so I'm using the skin brush to preserve the skin texture. Adding some slight shadow here below the nose. Blending a bit using my skin blender. The skin blender is part of my second skin brushes set. My skin brushes set volume 2. That contains the skin blender. It's a blender that preserves or gives some skin texture. Grabbing the grain brush again, add some more slight shadow here around the corner of the lip and below this lower lip. Blending it a little bit. I'm grabbing my soft blender from my blender set to blend the lips here because I don't need a skin texture here on the lips. I want them to look soft. So I'm using the soft blender. Now grabbing my darken line to darken this this line between the lips, making that even darker and more prominent. Using the multiply brush, I'm darkening the upper lip slightly. And now I'm grabbing my lighten brush to add some light here on the edge of the upper lip. And as you notice, things are really slowing down a bit now in the painting process because it's more about the little details, tweaking things when you are near the end phase. So yeah, that's why everything is slowing down a bit. I'm thinking a lot while painting, looking at everything, seeing where I can make adjustments, where I can improve things in my painting. I'm gonna add a slight light here. That's a little bit of the reflected light from the lower lip reflecting on the upper lip. And adding some highlights to the lower lip because that's where the most light will hit. I'm really focusing on refining the lips right now. Using my basic flow brush to add a little bit more shadow here in the lower left corner. Really shaping these lips. I'm using the darken line brush to add some of these subtle creases in the lips. Refining these edges here a little bit, darkening them. Doing the same thing on this side. refining that edge around the face. And here on that edge of the hair, here I'm just thinking, what to do next. Okay, let's grab the overlay brush. And add some reds, pink reds to the lips. Then I thought, no, that's too intense. Let's grab an orangey red. Also adding some around the eyes. Some pinks. I'm going to flip the canvas again so I can spot mistakes. And I'm grabbing the liquify tool. I do need to make sure to select the lashes layer and the layer with the portrait on it, because if I would only have the portrait selected and then use the liquify tool, the lashes, because they're on another layer, they would stay in place, and that would look silly, because then the face would be at another place than the eyelashes. So be sure to select all the layers that you want to use the liquify tool on. Now I'm just slightly correcting some things that I feel are a little bit off. Using the overlay brush again, unifying the colors, and now grabbing a skin blender to blend the skin a little bit more. Now I'm grabbing the smudgy hairbrush and I'm going to work on the hair some more because it's still a bit blocky right now. It needs some more definition. So I'm using the smudgy hairbrush to add, well, this lighter hair, to add more hair texture to the hair. And again, I'm imagining I'm brushing the hair, making these long flowing lines. Grabbing some darker colors as well, just picking them up from the canvas by holding my finger in place. Want to lighten up this area as well. So I grabbed a light color again. And I'm really slowly building up the hair layer by layer. Well, not really layers, but you know what I mean. Brush stroke by brush stroke with my smudgy hairbrush. I'm using the lighten hairbrush again to add some light details to the hair. And you could do something similar with the darken hairbrush. This will, well, you do need to use a darker color flow. I'm using a really light color, so that's not really working that well. But the darken hairbrush will enable you to darken areas of the hair. Yeah, it's set to multiply, so it will give some dark texture to the hair. But it does work better when you use a darker color or the base color of the hair. So now that I did it, it's a really subtle effect. This is the loose hairbrush. You can use it to add some loose strands. I made a new layer above the others because right now I was painting on a layer below the eyebrows and the eyelashes, so that wasn't very handy. So I'm making these loose hairs on another layer. You don't have to make too much loose hairs, but it can really add to the realism. Just some loose hairs in front of the face and on the outside. Yeah, we really are starting to get into the final detailing phase. Of course, I still need to do the shirt, and we will also be adding glasses, but the face and the hair, yeah, they are almost done now. I'm using the soft blender to blend these edges of the hair a bit, making them a little bit blurry. Now I'm going to work on the shirt. First I'm blocking in the colors a bit more, refining that edge, making it look a little bit more tidy. So you're refining that area here on the neck, darkening the shadow, using the darken line brush, and then blending it. Darkening this upper area of the iris a bit. I felt it was a little bit too light. So just making it slightly darker using the darken line brush. Because that area, of course, will be in shadow because the light is coming from above. Using the smudge tool at a very small size, blending it just a little bit here. And now let's continue working on the shirt. I'm gonna add these stripes. I'm just painting in these light stripes first. It doesn't have to be all that tidy. Pretty messy. And at first I didn't really know what I wanted with the shirt. If I wanted to go for a realistic look, or if I wanted to keep it a bit more stylized. I was messing around a bit. Now I experimented with the light and line brush, adding a light edge. Then decided to blend it a bit. Sometimes I don't know where I'm going with the painting or with a particular area, and I just try things out to see how it works, what it'll look like. Now here I experimented with making it look a little bit more realistic, trying to paint a knitwear. But later on I decided that that I would prefer a bit more stylized look for the shirt to also emphasize the more realistic look of the face, and also just for fun, trying something new, adding some more loose hairs to the hair right now, some darker loose hairs. And while detailing the hair a bit more, I'm just thinking about what I want the shirt to look like, where I want to go with the painting. Sometimes you can just leave an area alone for a little while to think about it. And yeah, that's why I like moving around on a painting, working on all the areas at the same time. Grabbing my overlay brush again. Using it to unify the colors a bit again. Making some areas a little bit lighter, a little less red. It's only subtle. Okay, now it's time to work on the glasses. Just renaming the layers to make everything more organized. I grabbed my line brush and a dark grayish brownish color to make the basic shape of the glasses. Like this. If you click edit shape, you can adjust it a little bit by dragging these circles. There we have one circle for the glass. And I duplicate this layer, get the arrow, and move it towards the other eye. Adjust it here a little bit. It's a bit too thin here. There, now we have the basic circles for the glasses. I'm going to merge them together, these glasses, and grab the liquify tool. Now I can slightly tweak the shape of the glasses. And move it around until I'm happy with them. Something like this, I think. Now I use this as a reference. I click reference, made a new layer below, and filled it with a light gray for the glasses. I'm going to lower the opacity for now. And I'm going to continue working on the frame. To make a new layer to make all the other parts of the glasses. I'm not sure what this part is called, maybe a bridge or something. Well, anyway, it's covering the nose bridge. So I'm using the same color as the frame, adding these details on a separate layer. And this is all done using the line brush. Now I'm making a new layer above the glasses, above the frame, and I've used a layer clipping mask. And now I can paint on the frame without going outside of the lines. I'm adding a highlight here. And on the lower end here. And on the other side. Adjusted it a little bit using the eraser. Now moving towards this lower end. I'm using the darken line brush to add some shadow. I've moved this little bridge thingy, other parts of the glasses below the glasses layer, so they wouldn't be bugging me. Sometimes it's nice to zoom out every once in a while to have a look at the entire painting to check where it's going. Well, I'm moving these parts up again and just erasing the parts where they cover the glasses. Adjusting it a little bit. And now I'm using Alpha Lock on this layer. And it's a bit like layer clipping mask. I won't be able to go outside of the lines, but I will be painting on the layer itself. So using a layer clipping mask, you will be painting on a separate layer, and by using Alpha Lock, you are painting on the layer itself. But that's fine in this case. Could have used it for the frame as well. Now adding the darker details. Okay, let's work on the glass itself. I'm turning up the opacity and then selecting mask. I'll fill it with black. And now by using a brush set to white, I can paint back in the color, the glass. So I can paint in a reflection here. Do need to pick white flow. And now I can paint back in this reflection in the glass. Turning up the opacity a little bit, just experimenting with it, with the effect. Using Alpha Lock on the layer and adding some extra highlights using the lighten line brush and a lighten brush. Here I'm just experimenting a bit with the look. I decide to add another layer to add some even lighter highlights, just some small details. Going back to the face and working on the skin here a bit, tweaking it a bit. Because of course the glasses will affect the skin surrounding it. It will leave a shadow. Also deciding to tweak the eyes a little bit here, adding some light creases or wrinkles. Using the skin blender here. These are really the final tweaks in the face. I am going to use the liquify tool to do some final tweaks, adjusting some things in the face. Tweaking the glasses a bit. So now I have only selected all the parts of the glasses. So I can just tweak those without touching the face. There. Now I can work on the shirt again. You need to select the correct layer. And I'm just going to blend these parts a bit. And I believe this is the part where I decided to keep the shirt simple, a little bit stylized. Now I'm blending the hair a little bit using a hairbrush, the soft hairbrush. And now I'm using the line brush to add these lines, these outlines to the shirt. And then the painting really is almost finished. Just some final tweaks. Now I really hope you liked this video, that you enjoyed watching my painting process here in Procreate. Watch me eat cookies, drink water. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you here on Patreon. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can always ask me anything. So I wish you a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.